one more video down the drain, soon to be with this one. So I have an idea that I want to tell you guys about, and that is how to come up with an idea that is going to make money a little bit easier than something else. And there's this thing in my mind, and I find a lot of startups that I do are close to this red line. Okay, and the red line is defined very simply as legality or the danger level of what you're doing. So a great example of this is, to me, the farther away you are on the innocent goody two shoes side of the red line, the more you're going to find out that your product is a lot harder to make money from. Okay, so if you go out there and you're like, hey, I'm going to sell baskets online, I'm going to make them myself. It's going to be the best basket weaving company ever. I'm going to have basketweaving.com and it's going to be perfect. It's going to be a really, really difficult business, I think, for you to get off the ground and do it because it's so boring and it's so legal. Now let's take that on the opposite side. I'm going to sell drugs. Okay, there's a lot of money in selling drugs for obvious reasons because it's way on the other side of the red line, and because a lot of people don't want to do it, you can make a lot of money. Okay, in Breaking Bad, there's this huge, supposed respect that's given to Walter White because he's made all of this money selling drugs, and he likes to imply like I have $1 billion company towards the end, saying that, and really, it's not as impressive as you think because when you do something illegal, it's easier to make a lot of money. Um, not getting caught is certainly something that matters, but the closer you are to the red line, the harder it gets on one side, and on the other side, yeah, basically, actually, the harder it gets. So I feel like I've done with a lot of my companies over the past is I've been near that red line, sometimes a little bit over, sometimes on the other side, but there's a lot of money to be made there, and the marketing happens itself and everything happens itself. And I'm going to give you some examples of companies I've done in the past, or ones that I've done now. So the very first company that I did long ago, so don't get too upset, okay, because I'm long out of this business and I would never do it again, and I hate cheaters. But the very first thing I did when I was 19 is I created a company that created and sold cheats for Counter-Strike 1.6 or 1.3. I can't remember. It was right when Steam came out, I think. Um, and I did that, and I ran that company for a few years, and it printed money. Printed money. I don't remember. It was like doing towards the end. It was doing like close to $100,000 a month off of video game cheats. It was unbelievable, and the whole thing really just started from the idea that uh, at the time I was like, I'm kind of bored. I work a lot, and I think it'd be really funny to troll people in Counter Strike, and I did it, and then I was like, okay, I'd like to cheat. I think that would be a good option of doing it. I'm very oversimplifying this, but this is way back in the day of like MyGot and things along those lines. And at the time, if you wanted to cheat in video games, you basically had to either be a programmer or you had to essentially know someone who was a programmer. Those were your options. There was no other situation. So what I did is I created a website that allowed just nobodies to go and get a cheat programmed for them, and it took off. And eventually we expanded to more games and blah blah blah. So to me, at that time, that was a startup that was like probably a little bit over the red line if I had to think about it now. But back then, there wasn't as much case law on 230 on what was okay and what wasn't okay. Like I wasn't pirating software. I wasn't technically enabling copyright infringement by theft. So I never had anyone sue me for any of the companies, but it was always a fear in my mind. And I eventually just shut the company down one day. It was like a business making 100 grand a month, and I know people always assume there's ulterior motives, but one day I just shut it down completely. I was like, if I keep running this, I'm going to get sued and lose everything. I did that. So that's an example of a company that's, to me, on the red line. Other examples of companies that I've done that have been on the red line. So another company I did, which was called Scour.com, and it was one of the first meta search engines. And it gave better results than Google. And you're like, oh, shut the fuck up, Dan. No, it didn't. Well, it did. And because at the time, what it did is it would pull in results from Google, okay? But it would also pull in results from Delicious and Dig and Stumble Upon, and it would use PageRank and Alexa Rank, and it would basically use all of these factors to determine if, and it would rearrange the results. So like, if I can simplify this, if you search for cats, the first thing I would do is I would search Google for cats. Then I would also search MSN.com for cats and also Yahoo.com for cats. And then I would compare the results. And I had different rankings for things. Like Google's ranked the highest, Yahoo was the lowest, MSN was in the middle. So like if all three search engines said that cats.com was number one, that had a lot of weight. Okay. And then the next thing I did is I started going and I was querying third-party sites. So at the time, things like Delicious, which was like a social bookmarking site, or Dig, which was kind of, older Reddit. And I would query them, be like, hey, has this been submitted to you? And if so, how many times and how many upvotes does it have? And I would combine all this data and basically have my own algorithm and be like, okay, this is the best result. And realistically speaking, we had better results than Google as a result of that, because we were taking in all of this data and combining it and doing it. But getting people to switch off Google was very, very difficult. And we had to do a lot of stuff, and having better results isn't enough. Sometimes with things like that, you have to go even further. But why was that on the red line? Why was that there? Because I wasn't asking for permission to use these APIs. We were just, essentially scraping these sites. Sometimes they would block you, so you'd use additional IPs and things along those lines, this whole thing. So that's on the red line. That's a business that no one did because, it's expensive and Google wasn't giving out access to do this unless you did it in a specific way. There's that. Another example of something on the red line, I created one of the largest petition websites, and that's not on the red line at all. But the monetization strategy, okay, that I invented, actually, and I think it's still in use today, and is one of the most scummy things. I regret that I created this more than the cheating industry, which I did create, because there was no pay cheating site before me. But this one was especially scummy. I'm just a bad person, I'm realizing here. Anyways, never forget I say anything. But listen, the petition site, the model was simple. First off, petition sites are fantastic because people come there, they create a petition, and then the next thing that they do is they're going out and they're sending it to all their friends and getting traffic and telling, hey, come here, come sign this petition. So that's the best business model in the world. I don't have to do shit. Everyone does their own marketing for you. I ran it like that for a while. It wasn't making that much money, okay? And then I think I was having a shower one day and I had that brain blast, the shower moment, okay? And the shower moment was, what about right after someone signed a petition, we asked them if they wanted to donate to support the petition? And of course, your mind may be going there, it may not, but my mind was like, oh my God, I can create my own ad network on this petition site. And when people donate, they're not donating money to the cause, they're donating money to me to promote this petition on my website to all the other people that sign petitions. So whenever someone else would sign a petition, I would essentially, there would be a widget and it would, like, whoever is donated to the other one, that one would get shown more. So I did this and it started pumping money. Huge deal. There's a whole story there that I can go into about how I could have owned like 30% of Groupon and all this other jazz. That'll be a story for another day of people trying to acquire that company. But needless to say, right now, change.org is the one that eventually acquired that and basically became what it was from that. And I think, could be wrong, I think, because I haven't signed a petition in a while, because I never voted, never signed a petition, never stolen Wi-Fi, the whole thing. Or no, stolen Wi-Fi, neighbor's computer, I don't remember. Anyways, I think they still do that. I think after you sign a petition, they say, hey, would you like to support this and get this in front of more people? And it's the most evil business model. You know who invented it? This guy right here. Because before me, that was it. All right. I had the largest petition website. Everyone else was fucking second tier. I think there was something like Petition Online and anything else. But anyways, what's the whole point of this story? The point is that as you, a NEET who has an idea for some company, you should know that the more sketchy it is, the easier it is going to be for you to make money and to potentially have success. And the less sketch it is, okay, the harder it's going to be. So if your big idea is to create Facebook for cats, you're going to be in for a fucking rough time. Okay, I should say Facebook for dogs, and you're going to be in for a rough time. Anyways, that joke is past. Anyways, that said, um, and if your idea is to create something which is scalping tickets or letting people, like a service that lets people buy GPUs the second they come online, or something that's like a little bit shady, your life is going to be 10 times easier. And let's think about like some past startups that have gotten huge being on that red line. Uber, Airbnb, these are startups that basically said fuck you to the law and existed. Airbnb, for all intents and purposes, absolutely should be illegal. And I don't know how it's not just being mass enforced, being shut down, with the exception that there has been so much legislation by the owners of Airbnb and the owners of Uber to kind of now make it retroactively legal, that it's there. Because if you think about Airbnb, almost every state in the country, every city, etc., has ordinances on tenancy. Okay, and tenancy ordinances is that anyone who stays more than 30 days is a tenant, and they have certain rights. So there's that, and then if you want to stay less than 30 days, you have to register as a hotel. That is the law in almost every city in America. Okay, and Airbnb basically got around and said, fuck you. You know, we're gonna let people rent out their rooms, and they're not a hotel, and that's it. And that was a business that is past the red line, right? And just telling everyone to go fuck themselves, but they grew so fast and they got so much money that they're able to legislate and have enough attorneys and basically bully their way into doing it, because now they have so many people that generate an income off of Airbnb that they're able to pressure city councils and things like that into essentially what you have is Airbnb ordinances. Like here in Miami Beach, we have things, and there's certain districts and they're zoned, and now they allow Airbnb, and a building that's across the street in the Airbnb zone will be worth more than one that's not in the zone there. And that's basically what's happened there. Same thing goes for Uber. Before Uber, if you wanted to go and have a taxi, you had to have a taxi license. You had to do everything else. And then Uber kind of exploited a law a little bit there, which is like, technically, if you go and you're not like going like this and putting your hand out the window to hail a cab, it's not a taxi. Like, it's a private car service, I guess. Like if I call and order it in advance. So that's how it did. Obviously, a taxi people lost their fucking mind as a result of all this. But that's another example of like coming in there, stepping on some toes, breaking some laws, and creating a huge business as a result of that. So when you think about creating a startup or a company, think about how close you are to that red line. And you really want to be on it, in my opinion, for some of the best startups. You want to be on it. You want to be stepping on toes. You almost want to be worried that you're going to be getting sued because of something that you're doing. That's the perfect startup. Okay. And if it's not like that, okay, it's going to be hard, or you have to be a genius. Okay. So maybe you're like, hey, listen, I found out a way to create free energy from quartz. And it's like, okay, maybe you don't have to be on the red line for that one. Maybe you're just so fucking smart and you came up with such an amazing idea that you're good to go. But typically that's not going to be the case. Typically you have to rely on creative marketing. You have to rely on established players being in the space trying to do what you've already done. It's hard to create a company and be successful, and being closer to the red line lets you kind of sidestep a lot of the problems a new startup would have. And it's probably the best idea, and it's how I evaluate also. I don't do a lot of investments in startups, but whenever I do, to me, I look to see how close to that line are you. And if you're really close, I get interested. And if you're really far away, you have to be impressing me with something that's fucking amazing that you have. Some like truly legendary tier shit of technology or something along those lines. Because I've also done companies that aren't on the red line, so to speak. It's just they take a lot more work, they take a lot more time, and it's a slog. Everydaycarry.com, that's nowhere on the fucking red line. That's just a startup where people share what they, the stuff that they carry with them every day. And it was a huge pain in the ass. Constantly owning that site. It's always worrying about the next Google search update and where your position's going to be. It's always going out there trying to find new advertisers, worrying about Amazon affiliate program, if they're going to kick you out or not. Or there's just like a million things that go on when you're doing that type of stuff. And I think that while not every company has to be on this red line, you should know that it's going to be a lot more difficult if you're not. So anyways, that's it for today. We'll get into, I want to have another talk just about how to decide what to build in the future. And I have a few ideas on that. So that'll probably be one of the next videos that we'll do, but this is probably good enough for today. So that's it. That's the red line. That's how I evaluate a lot of stuff. And I hope you enjoyed it. And we'll be talking again soon. Take care. Cheers.